And we have everybody here, including our student representative. And do we have any additions to the agenda? No additions to the agenda? So we all have the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Motion from Cheryl, second from Jacob. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried. Okay, anybody here for public comment? Doesn't look like it. Nothing against you two guys. I'm sure you're going to come in with the superintendent. Then we go to the consent agenda. So everybody got the minutes. So if there's any questions on those, but treasurer's report, I think we'll go right to that, Cheryl.
I was able to look through the bills and nothing stood out. It was pretty simple, straightforward. Nothing to comment on.
Okay. Everything else is listed here. Matt, anything on personnel, just kind of?
Yeah, I mean, the first semester overloads are there. It's kind of it was a work in progress, and so this is what we know right now for semester 1. But we have some idea for semester 2 overloads. There will be some coming, but the decision was just to hold off on that until we get closer to see what semester 2 is going to look like. Maria Rasmussen, Targeted Services, we talked about that last month, that was coming. A couple leaves of absences from Cassandra, Alexis, and Megan. And then there are a few resignations, both Brent Pence and Tim Wheeler. Those are both coaching resignations. Tessa Christensen was a custodian, and Holly Kern is a professional.
Okay. We have a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Make a motion.
A motion from Thomas.
Second.
And a second from Rick. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried. Communication items. We're right to you.
So I think we are going to go take a tour and take a look around the CTE space. We'll go outside and get a tour of that. We'll probably do the same thing we did last time we did this. When we come back then, board members, you guys can have a little conversation about what you see, what your thoughts are, and then we'll get to the committee organizational reports and student stuff. So,
Sound
ready?
good?
All right, let's go take a peek.
Purchase as part of the project.
Yeah.
Are we on again?
We are, yep.
Okay, so
Jake will be
we got
right back.
two more.
I just realized you took the display cases out. Are we just time to do that, or
Well,
they gonna do something with it? or?
yeah, I think we're hoping to have a digital kiosk
Oh, okay.
that will have all of that stuff. Yep. Do you want to wait for, Jake just said use the restroom on the way back and then he was going to be in here. We can start, I mean.
We'll go ahead if he's got questions.
Okay. So I guess I would open it up to board members as far as thoughts or what you saw, what your thoughts are, do you have questions or things? What did you think?
I thought the perspective of taking a walk around it a little closer, how big it is. Like I said, I was from a distance looking at it. It didn't look quite so big, but boy, it's exactly what we had planned.
So just for the community members' sake, so the walk that you guys just took through that space, we actually did that same walk from 4 o'clock to 5:30 this afternoon, and John and Josh were kind enough to put microphones on and walk through all of those spaces. That footage Matt Dickhausen has right now, and so he is going to be taking that footage, and it will be part of a Facebook Live event that's going out on Monday the 28th. And anybody who would tune into that will have the ability to pretty much take the walk that you guys just did, walking through that new space, and do that in a hour or so time frame that we'll have on Monday. And then that video is also just going to be posted on our website if people want to check it out. It's a very different perspective once you are able to actually get in the space and can kind of get a feeling for what it's like to be in the spaces. It's very different than driving by on the road or cutting through the parking lot and taking a peek. Other thoughts?
It's impressive. I mean, they're doing a great job, I think, of keeping on schedule and on track. And when changes happen, being creative about what's going to be the best solution. But I don't know, personally, it's super fun to see the space. I mean, it's emotional. And you think about, gosh, I mean, the news of volleyball, football, and you see us coming together. It's like, I think everybody just needed some great news. It's hard to believe. It's hard to believe they said August of 21 that a lot of the space will be here. So, I don't know, super exciting.
I agree with Maggie said. The first thing that came to mind is almost emotional. There's a level, I know, we've only been on the board for 2 years, but we've been part of the committees and groups working with the community to try to build what we're starting to see right now, and to stand in the middle of that, the whole process, from the wrestling room that we talked about and look at, and the auto shop, and the CT space that's nearing completion and being utilized right now, to the field house. Let's say stand in the middle of the field house and looking up and looking around, just imagining that there's a lot of hard work and a lot of people, and we're getting there.
I just keep imagining it full of kids and how much excitement there must be amongst our kiddos. It just, gives me goosebumps going through it and seeing everything and how fast it's going up, and thinking about the spaces and how they're going to be used in the future. It's got to be great for the kids. That's what's really exciting for me.
Anything else? So just moving forward then, I'm thinking we probably won't have another board tour until they actually get it closed in. And one, we're going to run into weather. That's just not going to be as conducive to being able to do that. So I think just as the board, I wanted to give you a heads up that probably, you're probably looking at a November board meeting is when we probably will go back and do some looking and stuff. But just know that that's kind of the plan. Let's let them get things closed in, and then we can go back and check it out again.
Well, I might be interested in your autograph. So maybe if it's 3-4 weeks and there's enough changes, you do a little video and post it so people get an idea.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. So maybe this is a good time to talk about Facebook Live. So, there are other school districts that have been doing some Facebook Live stuff with the COVID-19 and the return to learn and all the unknown for the fall. We decided to give it a try. And I think for the most part, they have been pretty well received. I've talked to a couple of people that found them to be informational and helpful and stuff. So right now, at our last administrative meeting, we actually are planning to have a Facebook Live session every month. So it would turn into once a month, we would do a topic. I mentioned September 28th is going to be the next one. The topic will be the facility project. That will be the only topic that we cover. But then the last Monday in October, there will be another Facebook Live event, and we will plan to do these once a month. Typically, whatever is close to that last Monday as we can get, as long as it doesn't conflict with the Talk at Paynesville show. That's the other one we're balancing. So know that those are coming, and absolutely, Bruce, that's always something. We'll always be looking for content, and we can always do the updates in that form as well.
I just think most of the public feels probably the same as I do. You don't really know what's going on there. Just a little hint here and there, certainly done early. We had a nice pictures in the press with the building in there. That was nice. And hopefully that keeps going too. That'll help a lot of people.
Are the Facebook Live sessions, they're all gonna go on YouTube as well?
Correct, yeah, thank you Maggie for bringing that up. So, it started off as Facebook Live, so then Matt also runs them at the same time on our YouTube channel. So Paynesville Studios is, if you go to YouTube, just search Paynesville Studios, I think it'll be the first thing that comes up. But anything that we talked about that is saying on Facebook Live is also broadcast live on our YouTube feed as well.
Good.
Okay, the only other thing that I have is, we're gonna talk about some COVID-related stuff as we get a little bit further on the agenda. But I do just want to recognize everybody that has done what I would consider exceptional work getting back to school. You know, I have intentionally been trying to get out and walk around and see students and stuff, and it's refreshing to see their willingness to work with people and be able to be in classrooms with the restrictions and expectations that we have. It's been really refreshing to not constantly be running into a student behavior issue because of what we're asking them to do. So it's recognized, and I personally, I appreciate it. I think I can speak for Matt, David and Mary as well. They certainly appreciate it as well. And then the other thing is employees. This is not been easy on anybody, but I think all of them are putting forth an exceptional effort. And there are things that we do that we know right away that didn't go well, and we need to make changes and do things differently. But for the most part, I think things have gone fairly well, and I'm glad that that's the report, and that's where we're at, because I know that there are places that things aren't going well. And it's nice to be part of something that feels like everybody's trying to move at least in the same direction. So thank you to students, thank you to staff. It's been a pleasure, and obviously families as well. Appreciate it. That's what I got.
Okay. Then do we have any committee reports? Do we have anything standing out there? I see these committees are starting up.
Oh, we have a West Central Ed.
Okay.
So they gave an update on how their programming is going. So Beacon, they're fortunate with their program that all of their students can be on site and maintain 50% capacity and 6 feet social distancing, so, which is nice. I mean, they don't have to do any of the remote learning. The ALC, they're also able to spread out their kids far enough, and so some families, they said, are choosing to do some distance learning, so I think that's 4 families. But for the most part, everything's going really well. They are fortunate again to have enough space. So they also did hotspots with AT&T, and they got a deal, which is, I think is really impressive. They're 99-cent phones, and then they're running their hotspot, I think it's like $36 a month, something like that, but it's going really well for those students who don't have access. That's able to work for them. The birth to 3, they're still not allowed in homes, so like right now they can meet with families outside and different things, but obviously as the weather changes, they have to come up with some different solutions. So they're looking at different elementary buildings, community centers, different places where they can actually meet with families, because they can't go that long. I mean, birth to 3 is a critical time frame, as is any age, but imagine 6 months to you're not meeting in that age group. So they're just trying to figure out different solutions for that. One of the biggest things that I think was like, not alarming, but it was just like, oh my goodness, like looking at the workload that they've been doing is within the West Central Ed, they have 980 students in IEPs, and so all the special ed teachers have to update every single plan. So imagine all the teachers going through making addendums. And so again, we talk about workload and what these teachers and staff are going through. They're pushing as hard as they can on top of what they're normally doing. So it's just kind of good to hear the insight of all the other things that happen because of the situation that we are in. Let's see. They talked a little bit of what their peers funding, so similar funding that we're getting, but obviously at a much smaller level just because of their population. And Their enrollment at the ALC is around 37. They have a cap of about 40-ish, so they said they're really in a sweet spot right now when it comes to enrollment, so they're really happy with that. And just looking through everything else, is that kind of pretty much everything? It was kind of an overview of how things are going. And I think, again, the biggest thing is they're doing different things just because the different programs they have, so they have different challenges, but they're in the same boat of trying to figure out solutions and what's the best way and trying things and learning and, pivoting as things come along, but it seems like everything's going well. Yeah, Matt, I don't know.
No, I think you summarized it, yeah. It's the same conversation.
And that's it for committee reports. So next, we'll do any comments from our student representative.
We just have the student council starting up, so we have high school student council meeting tomorrow, and then I know the middle school is doing voting stuff yet. So that's about it. And I know students are loving the new workshops, and I personally like the egg room. It's so much nicer. So I've heard a lot of good comments of the new stuff.
Good.
Paige, can you take one thing back to student council for me?
Sure.
So typically December board meeting is when students would come to that. We are going to have a little bit of we need to just do some brainstorming on what that might look like.
Okay.
Because I don't know that we'll be able to accommodate the number of students that we have in the past,
Okay.
depending on what space we use. So if you just want to take that back to the group and see kind of, they want to start brainstorming what they want December to look like,
Okay.
that'd be great, and I would be more than open to conversations about it too.
Okay. Sounds good. I can take that back.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, old business, I see none. New business, we'll go to the preliminary pay 2021 levy.
So the first run, now just mind you, this is the first run. By statute, districts have to identify their levy target by September 30th of the calendar year previous to when the levy goes into effect. So that means by the end of the month, we have to declare what our intention is with our local levy. Be my recommendation that the board choose to levy the maximum preliminary levy, which in this case, for pay 21 would be $3,601,132.89. That is a decrease of about 3.41% over last year, and that decrease represents about $106,272.89. The bulk of that decrease, nearly $70,000, is due to the debt amortization schedule that the board approved when we sold the 2019 bonds for the facility project. There was a step down in that structure from the first year and what we paid, effectively collecting the taxes last year to this year. There was a slight step down, and that's representing the bulk of this decrease. Questions at all on the local levy? So this is still a fluid document. We will submit that we are intent to certify the maximum amount allowable to each of the counties in which we have property, Meeker, Stearns, and Candy, Ojai. Over the course of the next 2.5 months, MDE will continue to update our levy documents, and then it will be up to the board to actually certify that levy after we have our truth and taxation hearing. Which will be in December, I think, in November, December.
Questions? Then we're looking for a motion to approve the maximum preliminary pay 2021 levy as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion from Rick, second from Jacob. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Carried. Then we're on truth and taxation meeting.
So the next thing we have to do is we have to schedule our truth and taxation meeting. This gets a little tricky this year. Our second board meeting in November, and Katie, help me if I misspeak here with this. Our second board meeting in November is, I believe, November 24th, the fourth Tuesday of November. The issue with that is, by statute, we have to hold the hearing sometime after November 24th, but before December something. I'm forgetting off the top of my head.
Everybody,
So the problem becomes, in the last year when we ran into this, because typically we only have one December meeting, and it's usually during the day when students participate. The board didn't want to have the truth and taxation meeting then, and by statute we can't because it has to be after 6 p.m. Well, we can't use our regularly scheduled November meeting. So I think the board has a couple of options. You could schedule a special meeting. So if you still want to do the December 15th, 1:30 board meeting with students, you could still do that. And then we could schedule a special meeting for 6 o'clock p.m. on that same date, just in that evening. And the only thing that would be on the agenda would be the truth and taxation public hearing. Or we could move the December 15th meeting to 6 p.m. We could still have students potentially participate at 6 p.m. As I was saying earlier, it's going to look different already than it has in the past, just because of what's going on with social distancing and all that, so it's going to need to look different. The format needs to look different already. Or a third option could be you just simply schedule a completely different truth and taxation date and time. The only thing is it has to be after November 24th, before December 28th, and it cannot be before 6 p.m. It has to be scheduled for 6 p.m. or later on at the time that the board selects. So I guess my question is, what would the board like to do?
So what about 2 meetings on the 15th? One at 1:30 with the kids, so that it's more appropriate for their time, and then we have this at 6. Is that agreeable with everybody, or thoughts? Matt, I keep it simple enough?
Because on that Tuesday, I don't know if there's going to be events or not. I wouldn't want students who could participate in this meeting now can't if they have the event on a Tuesday night. So I think.
Right, but if we have it in the afternoon,
Right, that's what I
eliminate
think.
that.
It's probably best so that we stay away, that the students can actually attend them. I would.
So keep the December 15th board meeting, the regular
keep that,
business meeting will be 1:30, and then you guys are gonna set the truth and taxation public hearing at
6
6 p.m. on Tuesday, December 15th, and we will have that hearing right here in the boardroom. Correct?
Yep,
Hey?
Yep.
Okay, you got that?
so do we have you're looking for a motion and a second?
Yep.
Okay, well, we have a motion from Maggie for what we just talked about. Do you have a second?
I think so.
A second from Thomas. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Carried. Then we got lane changes.
So we have one faculty member who has submitted everything and is approved for a lane change. Marie Grothy's current lane assignment was the Masters of Arts lane. The recommended new placement would be MA plus 10. This is really determined and bound by contract, so I would recommend the board approve it.
I'll make a motion to approve the lane changes as presented.
I'll
We have
second.
a second from Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Carried. Then we're on the Minnesota State High School League dues.
Okay, so I think, first of all, I think I can step aside here and I'll have Max come up and he can kind of just visit with the board about state high school league activities and where things are at. And then after we have conversation, if there are questions, after we take care of that, then we can have discussion about this dues piece. Okay?
Well, some significant changes in the last week to the fall schedule for the high school league, which will have a ripple effect hopefully for the rest of the calendar year. On Monday, the high school league had a special meeting, the board of directors, and they made a motion and a vote to start both volleyball and football back this fall, moved it back to the fall with the start date of September 28th, which is next week, Monday. In those two sports, there already was a practice season, which we had talked about, so they're up and running, and the official seasons start that day. The first day of competition for volleyball will be October 8th, and the first for football will be October 9th. And then the last end of the season is November 28th, and the for football, and the end of the season for volleyball is December 12th. So that has created significant changes and excitement within our student body, and obviously more logistics for us to work out as an admin team. We're meeting tomorrow to discuss some of those things on how we're going to proceed forward. Of course, with volleyball right now, the Department of Health guidelines, we can't have any fans indoors, so essentially we're going to be limited to the essential workers to make that event go. And football being an outdoor activity has a 250 capacity for attendance, which is similar to what they've already had for soccer and cross country that has been going on in tennis for outdoor state high school league events. Does anybody have any questions on that, or how that's works?
How will you determine that attendance? Do like kids get so many tickets to hand out?
So that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow as an admin team. So, you know, there's a couple of thoughts on there, right? Because there's obviously 2 teams that are participating. So, you know, it would greatly change our thoughts if, you know, if we're distributing those equally among the teams, or if the home team is kind of in control of that. And, you know, we're in a unique situation in Paynesville where we're going to be able to live stream all of our home events, both volleyball and football. And so for those that aren't able to come, they're going to be able to view those contests as well as the visitors. You know, that's not necessarily going to be the same scenario. I think chances of live stream events for volleyball is going to be higher than football, just because most schools have the capacity from an internet standpoint to be able to do that in the building as opposed to outside. And our schedule for football has changed significantly, which just came out today. So I don't know what the capacities of some of those fields in different places that we haven't played before.
And it's 250 or 50% of the capacity, right?
250.
No matter what the capacity is, only 100.
Well,
You
yeah,
can have 250 people standing around. I thought there was still the need for some kind of social.
I would imagine that would still fall in place, yeah.
So you're right, Rick, but it's not to exceed 250.
Right.
So it's 50% capacity or 250. And so for like our football stadium, for instance, with the standing room and with all of that, we're going to be able to admit 250 and not have an issue.
I was thinking some other schools around here that don't have a lot of bleacher space or something.
And generally speaking, I guess I don't pay a huge attention to what's going on in the stands during football games, but people I think, no matter where we've played, are standing around and things like that too. So that's you know.
Another thing I didn't hear anything about when this announcement came out is that baseball, softball, track and field were supposed to have a practice season to make up for last spring, but that's going to take place now during football and volleyball. So is that out the window, or?
So theirs wasn't set in, is October 4th maybe, or 3rd, one of those two is a Monday. That's when their season was going to start. October 1st is the next regularly scheduled high school league board meeting. My anticipation is that they're going to cancel those practice seasons for those sports at that time. They haven't done anything with it, and so they're still on the table. However, the high school league would say we allow that to happen. It doesn't mean that the school districts have to choose to run those or operate them either. So,
Have you had any conversation, or you plan on having conversation with the conference schools regarding attendance and how, or you feel most of the conference schools are just going to do what's best for you and your situation with your field?
yeah, so in real time, our football schedule was approved at 1 o'clock today.
Yeah.
So, and it's not even, our schedule consists of playing Montevideo, Long Prairie, Gray Eagle, Royalton, Holding Ford, Morris, and Osakis. So Holding Ford is the only school that I just named out of there that's actually in our conference. Our volleyball schedule is 14 games, and with 8 schools in the conference and not playing yourself, we're playing every school in the conference twice. So yesterday, we had a meeting with conference schools and said, oh, the volleyball's pretty simple because everybody's on the same page, same conference, plus you can't allow people in. yeah, I need to kind of have individual conversations with these schools to figure out what's going on. And I think everything is going to be fluid. The state high school league has said that if you go into distance learning from a mandatory standpoint with your numbers, you're no longer able to participate in activities. If you voluntarily go into distance learning, you can participate in activities. So we might find out on a Thursday before a week that one of the schools in either volleyball or football is going to a distance learning and shutting down their extracurricular activities. Right now, the people that are in voluntary distance learning are choosing to offer them still. So we very well might play a team that we don't even have on our schedule right now, and we end up reaching out. In fact, one of the things I just did a little bit ago was email a guy at State High School League to see if they would start a message board of teams that have open games, so that if you found out that you didn't have a team on a Friday, that you could try to get. For us, it's just about maximizing the opportunities. There's no plan right now for state tournament play. They are planning on going through sections, but even at that, we're going to take advantage of the opportunities that we get. And we're allowed to play 6 regular season contests for football and 14 for volleyball. And if we end up with 4 and 12, because that's what we have, that is, I can't speak to exactly why and how the high school league made all of their decisions, but at the end, they did determine that the best place that they would be able to offer, especially football, was in the fall, because it just didn't fit in the spring with the weather in Minnesota that they're looking at. And then volleyball in the spring really created a lot of issues with a lot of other activities as well, and shoving everything into the summertime. So
You mentioned October 1st, just so they have another meeting. When are they deciding on fall or winter?
yeah, so the winter schedule is they're supposed to set their whole calendar from
Okay.
at that meeting. October 1st is their plan for that. I think you can kind of see the handwriting on the wall. They're likely not going to start those winter sports on time as they have now that football's going till November 28th and volleyball's going till December 12th. Chances are the basketball, hockey, wrestling, I don't know. They're in a unique situation because what's happening with the state high school league is a lot of clubs are coming alongside and saying, we'll offer you the opportunity, right? And so they're in a tough spot, because if they minimize the opportunity too much, student athletes will choose the club option where they feel like they get a better opportunity.
Personally, I think that this might be an opportunity to relook at the whole schedule of sports in the state of Minnesota for the long term.
One would think, Rick, that going through this whole pandemic situation, that we would reevaluate everything that we do and look at it, and that's the hope and the goal, but unfortunately it seems like too many people just want to jump right back into what we always did, whether it was the smartest thing or not.
I'm just thinking if you moved everything up a whole month, and winter sports start after Christmas, and spring sports start a little later, so you're not battling the...
And there's some great models, like I think it's Colorado, they don't have any, over Christmas break, it's a mandatory shutdown, right? So they have that week off. But the issue is when it's allowed, it takes a certain philosophy of a leader to say, we're not gonna do it even if other people are, because of the fear of missing out, or, sometimes you feel like if you don't do it. I don't know that that's always necessarily the case, but you have to,
Well, I'm just saying, just because we've always done it this way, we've always started football early in August, and we're done now, and I know weather plays a part in it too, but it just might give us a chance to step back and say, there might be some other options here. I hope the State High School League considers that.
So do I. We'll see if they listen to my considerations.
And so I think it says the 250 does include event staff and like pep band, I think. And so I'm just curious, these decisions are going to be difficult and tough, but I hope, probably parents, but like students too. I think about the students who aren't in volleyball or football want to go, as a community member, if I don't have a kid in that sport, I will happily give up my spot so that the student, I hope that people realize kind of who gets first access.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe we could get some entrepreneurship out of this. Our players, if they're allowed to have so many vouchers, maybe they'll learn the economics of supply and demand. But yeah, it's going to be extremely difficult. I think that was, you know, again, I can't speak for the board of directors, but I think that's some of the reason why they were making the decisions that they were, because of the, especially from the volleyball standpoint, when they made that decision, a lot of it had to do with the fact that if we started volleyball right now, we wouldn't be allowed to have fans in the building to watch it. You know, Matt can probably speak more to what the guidance is that comes from the Department of Health and the Department of Ed, but that's just the rules that our school's under with the Minnesota State High School League. That's not necessarily the case everywhere else, so.
Another question I had is, I don't want to know what they are, but has the State High School League set down the protocols for each sport as far as health? I thought I heard they hadn't yet, which sounds to me like they put the horse before the cart a little bit. We're going to play football, but we're not sure how we're going to do it safely.
Regarding COVID-19, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, we have procedures that were already put in place for us from a practice standpoint for our practice season, so we have all that. The only thing that I haven't seen official action taken on by high school league board, which I guess they wouldn't really need to until that October 1st meeting, is a return to play form that they want filled out for somebody who would be diagnosed with or test positive for COVID-19 for them to be able to return to play afterwards. That's something that they're going to be adding, which is something that they already have in place with a head injury. So,
What is the policy right now? Because I've heard what happened at Eve Valley with the cross-country team. That if somebody gets COVID on a team over there, they said the whole team was out for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Is that just a school policy, or is there a?
it's all case by case, Rick.
I mean, I wonder if you start football practice and a couple players come down with it.
well, we're very, very calculated with what we're doing from a practice so that we can limit the close contact. So if you look at what the Department of Health calls a close contact, 15 minutes within 6 feet, certainly there's some contact. However, we're avoiding those situations, that very thing. Because what Matt can probably attest to, certain things like seating charts on bus, if you don't have that and you can't verify where everybody's at, they'll just quarantine your whole team because they don't know. Like so you might find this interesting, but in this my 12th year coaching football, I haven't took attendance ever until this year because I always just figured whoever wanted to be there wanted to be there, and so. Now we have to take attendance, because if I don't take attendance and somebody tests positive and I can't show them the attendance of who was all there so they can do their contact tracing, they'll shut the whole team down. So there's certain procedures that we have to do. I mean, you can't share water, like we don't drink out of the spigot out there anymore. We can't do that. It's really, for us, the water breaks and some of that stuff is the main things that we've had to change from our practice because we don't do a lot of contact anyways in there. But that's the most difficult part too, because you stand and you take a break and the kids just come together and it's like, you guys have to spread out. And it's also about teaching them what that actually means to have close contact and who, so that if they know if they're in that situation. So, I mean, certainly that's a fear, right? I think what the high school league has found out is that what all the medical experts will say, that we're very likely going to be dealing with this COVID-19 stuff, regardless if the fall, the winter, the spring, or whatever. So from a football standpoint, we would have been dealing with it in March anyways if they open back up. From winter sports for gymnastics and wrestling and boys and girls basketball, boys and girls hockey, they're going to have to deal with those same things. So to answer your question, I think the Department of Health is going to be the one that's going to be making the determination that tells somebody whether or not they're supposed to quarantine or not, or whether or not they have to shut down. Correct. And we hope it doesn't happen to us or somebody that we're supposed to play that week.
I think you made a good point on MTR. I think this goes for all activities, is that if they're open, hopefully students are going to comply more like 24/7, right? Because they're not going to want school to get shut down. They're not going to want their activity to be shut down. So hopefully it kind of elevates their alertness into, we need to wear a mask in public. We need to, be cautious because we don't want whatever activity they're in to be shut down. So I think that's hopefully a plus side, that, not saying students don't take it seriously, but that kind of drives it home a little bit more.
Right now, a student athlete who would get COVID-19 may or may not feel that they're at a great risk from a health standpoint. Certainly they're, have an ability to spread it and all of that stuff. With that being said, what's going to happen to them if they're not sick and hospitalized is they're going to have 14 days at home and they're going to be on a computer. And granted, I don't think they want that. I can speak for the ones that are in activities and say if you tell them that you're going to take away. I mean, look what activities do for attendance, for kids, for whatever. I really firmly believe that this is what gives these student athletes skin in the game as far as making good choices and good decisions. Football is unique because there is no club that offers it, so our there's some 7-on-7 leagues and different things kids can do, but our student athletes didn't really have an option to go play football. Pretty much our entire volleyball team just continued the volleyball season in a club entity. Now there's not the same regulations and restrictions and procedures and protocols and all of that taking place as far as attendance or doing they won't come in and shut your teams down or any of that stuff. So the high school league, I think, is making a decision to say this is our best chance to be able to put some kind of guidance. I don't know if control is the right word, but they believe in our schools to do it to the safest possible manner. I think we're fully prepared at our school that we're going to have an athlete or we're going to have a student. I mean, we're going to have a case. Like, I'm sure Mr. Bullard would tell you as a school board, you're going to, a student or a staff or somebody's going to test positive and we're going to have to deal with it.
Thank you. You're gonna address the dues now? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so, there's also, more going on in the news with the dues. Max mentioned a couple times, October 1 is the next board meeting. I do believe that the state high school league has received some feedback about their dues, and I don't necessarily know that it was all positive feedback. So they, I believe, are going to have their dues as a topic of conversation. What I would suggest for the board is, I personally do not see a circumstance in which we would not be a member of the state high school league. So I think the board can approve these dues and the concept of paying if there is a COVID-19 dues, the concept of paying that, I think that's fine. I did mention last at the work session, I have these dues built into our coronavirus aid money that we are getting. And so it is not like we're using general fund dollars to pay this, but just know that after October 1, there could be a new state high school league letter that arrives in your email that changes the due structure, because I do believe that is something that we'll have conversation about.
Okay, we're looking for a motion to approve the 2020 Minnesota State High School League COVID-19 payments of $7,000 first half in October, second half in January.
Make a motion.
A motion from Thomas, do we have a second? Second from Maggie. Any further discussion?
I thought about making an amendment. I'll make an amendment for discussion purposes. I have no problem voting for this. It's fine with me. I'm all for paying our dues and going the extra mile. I'm always leery when any agency, especially when it's government or whatever, adds taxes and say it's just a one-time deal and it'll take it away in another year. So my thought was a letter from the school board to the high school, just basically saying the Paynesville Area School Board acknowledges the difficulties faced in the Minnesota State High School League and has moved to accept and pay the increase in membership fees for the 2020-21 school year. We also understand this to be a one-time necessary addition to our normal fees. We expect that the Minnesota State High School League will engage in serious deliberations towards finding ways to meet their costs in the future without adding more burdens to each individual member school. Whether it's necessary or not, it just, to me, it's an extra little boost when we send our check in to say, here we are, we're on your side. However, it's on you guys to make sure that next year you don't come back and say, boy, we're in trouble again. Maybe we can pay it without any problem. I know a lot of schools can't. A lot of schools are having real trouble with this. But I don't know what you think. I'll just throw that out there as an amendment that we send a letter along with our first check just to state what I just read.
And that is also stated in the high school memo that all of you have as well.
I know it's stated there. I just want to.
I understand.
Yep, we're watching you guys. That's all I'm saying.
But I also think we just have to be very serious about what our alternatives are. And I don't believe the alternatives are good for students. You know, when you talk about, when Max talks about, you know, football being the only sport that doesn't have a club option, well, just mind you, there are some equity issues in club activities. My kids all participated in club activity that was the tune of over $1,000 a season. So I just don't know that is even really a viable option for us to entertain. And so I just want to make sure that I struggle with the high school league. I struggle with the way that it is run. I struggle with the direction in which I hear the high school league talk about we represent our members, but I do not feel as a member that we have much of a voice. And that I struggle with that. But the flip side to that coin is I don't see a viable option in return. And so I guess, Rick, my question would be is, what's Paynesville's next step?
Well,
When the dues don't go away?
there's no threats in here. It's a positive letter, just saying we're putting the onus back on you to take care of this problem that has been created. And all I said is, we encourage you, or expect that you will look at other alternatives. So I'm just putting the onus back on them. I'm not threatening them, I don't think. I tried to make this as positive as possible. But I think they need to realize that even though, yeah, we're going to send you the check, that it's just not coming beyond. We're not going to. And you just said, you know, that sometimes you don't think we have a voice. Well, we're just trying to put a voice in there.
Yeah, and I think that, as I said, the feedback that the board has gotten hasn't been necessarily the positive feedback about this. So yeah, I think the message is already landing squarely at the state high school league board table. You know, if you want to include a letter, that's fine. I'm really leery about writing letters that we're not going to follow through with anything. It just seems to me like, okay, we're going to write a nicely worded letter, what's next? What happens when that letter falls on deaf ears and there is a $1,500, a $2,000, or whatever increase next year, then what? Do we just up the ante in a more sternly written letter? I just don't see us having an out, because we can't go down the club route.
Well, at some point, we keep saying the Minnesota State High School League is us, and yet we're afraid of, you know, we can't do anything with them.
It's just, it's giving a little bit of a voice and saying, you know, that we might all be individual school districts, but if enough of us say, hey, we're not happy about this, they have to address it at some point. They can't just keep ignoring all the voices.
When I look at it from hovering over, and I look at this whole program, we didn't let the kids go back and play their sports, right? And I've not seen where the COVID cases have gone down. Okay? And now we're letting them go. I mean, I think it may not hurt to just put a statement in there. Not that we have to follow up on it, but not just get a check and cash it in the bank. Just says, listen, we need you guys to be responsible on this. Because from my perspective, maybe not intense in sports like you guys, but it's like, okay, our counts were less than they were when they said we couldn't play sports. Now they're a little more and we can play sports. I think maybe in hindsight, they probably should let the sports play in the beginning. And I'm just trying to interpret what you're talking about, Rick. Maybe we're just saying, listen, we want to give you a lot of thought to this. We are paying some money here. No, we have to pay the money. You can't rebuild the Minnesota State High School League. But
I'm not opposed to the letter. I just want to make sure everybody around the table understands, because usually if a letter doesn't work, then there's a more aggressive action that this body's going to take. And I just want everybody around the table to understand, when push comes to shove, we need the Minnesota State High School League to be viable, to be successful, and to be available for our students. And that's what I just want to make sure that this board truly understands. The way you're wording that letter, Rick, I don't believe there's anything threatening in there or anything like that.
And they need to understand that they're necessary, but that means they have to find a way to make it work. And we realize the pickle they're in. It's not easy.
Well, does it need to be tied to the check? Because if that's what potentially makes it feel like, what is the next step? You know, because it's tied to like, are we gonna pay it next year or not? We're going to, regardless what happens, right? So maybe it's offering a letter that is from the school district and voicing our concerns of how things are going. That's not attached. So it's more of an advocacy, like piece versus like, you know what I mean? We don't need the next step. We're voicing our concerns and in that way, but not attached to a check.
But we don't know what's coming up. I don't mean to speak for Rick, but if all we're doing is stating in a letter, we really want you to provide us a service for this money. I think that basically is what it is. I think that's only reasonable. For us to be continuing this, if they can't provide us the high school sports, well, guess what? They should all know they're gonna be out of a job too. Or however they do it. But we're not gonna have that. You've got to, yeah, but it has a lot to do with the kids and getting together and other things other than normal scholastics.
Right, but
Am I
the
interpreting
high
that
school,
correctly?
I was just saying the high school league also includes a lot of activities that aren't just sports, so it's
Correct.
speech and one
Correct,
activity.
but they're also gonna include lots of kids, togetherness, a lot of things, and we don't have any idea where this thing is gonna go, but I think it doesn't hurt us to just say, I don't know. So here we sit, we have a motion and a second. We can have another motion to include the amendment.
Did we get a second to the amendment?
Yeah, I second, and then
I-
there's discussion.
So do we have a motion from Rick on the amendment?
I made a motion, but I'm willing at this point, since there's gonna be maybe more talk about October 1st, to withdraw it for now, but to leave it for future discussion and maybe at the next meeting, based on what happens at the high school league.
Because
I like
said
that.
you were on that.
That we'll come
That
back.
makes sense.
How about if we just, let's let the state high school league take the feedback that they've heard. Let's let them do their work on October 1, and then we can always bring this back to the October business meeting, and this body can make a decision if you want to follow up with something formal.
Well, I'll withdraw, because I got what I wanted, that was discussion.
All right.
I do hope it comes up, because I do agree, yeah, I would be happy to write some help with something formal, that Thomas and his work, that we can, as a board,
Right.
I agree.
So we have a motion to pay the $7,000 on the first half and the second half in January. We have a second for that. Any further discussion? No further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no, carry.
Can I just make sure I have a piece of clarity too for people that may watch this? Our dues are $7,000 in total. It's 2 installments right now. It'd be $3,500 due in October, $3,500 due in January. We will see what happens October 1. If those numbers change, obviously that will impact that total amount. But I just want to make sure that people don't believe.
I think that's a really good idea because I might have tangled that up a
Well,
little.
I just don't want people to think we're paying $14,000, and
Yeah,
somebody
I'm
might
with you.
do it that way, so the total potential could be 7,000, 35 and 35. Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we have,
In addition to our dues for,
Correct.
Our regular meetings.
In addition to, we have already paid our regular dues, which were like $1,836 or something around that number, so that's in addition to that, yes.
okay, designation of an Iowa action.
So this is an annual thing that I need from the board. The board needs to establish or identify a person who has access to the secure side of MDE's website. It's where all of our data submissions and stuff work. In the past, the board has identified the superintendent. I need to send this into MDE because they actually revoked my privileges as of yesterday. So as soon as I get this, we can get back in the system, so.
I'll make the motion as stated here.
Second.
We have a second from Rick. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried. Then we're on the COVID-19 relief funds.
So I just want to run through these. So the SR dollars, the first grant, we have submitted the application. The application itself is just uploading this first PDF. as it's included here, the first 3 pages. We are now, the next step is then to go and itemize what we're gonna be spending our dollars on. So that's what we'll get to at the end. The gear funds as well, that has been uploaded, so we are in the approval process for that. The third item is the larger pool of money, which is the coronavirus relief funds, those CRF dollars. Again, that application has been uploaded to the state. And then lastly are the county funds. Those are not, those do not need to go through the state. We need to actually send our invoices and bills on to Stearns County, and they will reimburse us up to our allocation amount. So if you go to the last page of this is what we are putting as far as our funding requests. Most of this it falls into 3 categories. You either have the PPE, which would be face masks, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies, stuff like that, or face shields. Then you have cleaning supplies for facilities, and then lastly you have technology and equipment. Some of this technology and equipment, for instance, you will see on here some 3D printers. So for instance, one of the things that we're running into right now is the Innovation Center at the secondary school. It would be ideal if we had some additional equipment, so then we could have kids be able to social distance and use those in a more within the guidelines and have more access to that type of equipment. So that's why some of that is on here. You'll also see in the middle of these requests, we have a virtual painter and a virtual welder as a request that we are going to see if it will get approved. I don't know if they'll approve it or not. But one thing that I can say is having a secondary school in hybrid, and particularly last spring when we had all students in a distance learning model, it's very hard for any of our CTE, those hands-on courses, to be able to really do much of anything that's practical and hands-on. Some of this virtual equipment would really be compatible with getting kids started in welding or even the finishing booth in a much more practical manner versus what we experienced last spring. So that's why those are on there. The other thing that we are wanting to do is we have posted for a remote learning facilitator. The intent with this position would be that this would be the one-stop shop for all of our remote learning students. This teacher would be assigned to our kids that are in remote learning. The classroom teachers would still provide instruction, but when you have the technical issue or questions or looking for some tutoring, this person, this teacher, would be the first point of contact for these remote students. You may have a teacher who is in class with another class and that remote learner has a question they're stuck on. They could reach out to this remote learning facilitator. That position would be a 1-year position. It would be good for this school year, but this school year only. And then we would need to reevaluate where things are at. Realistically, it would probably just be the 1-year position. And then there's a variety of things on here that are already expenses that we have incurred. It's just a matter of, so for instance, in the community ed is about 2/3 the way down. There's $65,000 set aside for community ed. Those are funds that last spring, community ed was unable to bring in any revenue, but yet they were still paying people to do the emergency child care program and stuff. So that would be funding that we could use to be able to reimburse community ed for a portion of their unrecouped expenses. Doesn't necessarily make community ed whole as far as what they experienced last spring, but it does go a long way to be able to shore up kind of where they're at or where they're sitting financially. Mental health services, I did put $13,000 aside for mental health services, so we have our Stearns County Family Services Collaborative money. That's about $9,000. So we would have a fund there just over $20,000 in order to be able to provide mental health services for for students and families as we deal with COVID-19 and the issues it's created. Questions at all? Live streaming equipment, I did just want to touch base on that one too. So that is equipment that we would be able to enhance our actual live streaming capabilities in classrooms for remote learners is what that would accomplish.
Are, like, other school districts, are they doing like a remote learner facilitator type position, or do you have somebody that you can kind of,
Model that.
model
I
after, or
have
you kind of just
seen,
leave them later?
I've seen some in the area doing something like that. I've seen some more down in the metro area that have hired more of those people on. I think the thing that some districts were trying to do is actually, ours is more of a facilitator, meaning that just because you're in remote learning, this doesn't mean that this is your teacher. You still are going to be getting instruction from your classroom teachers. There are some districts that tried to hire these people and then just said if you're in remote learning, that one teacher is going to be doing everything. It worked out well to start with, but there were a couple districts that had, for a variety of reasons, like maybe an entire 5th grade was quarantined, and all of a sudden their remote learning teacher went from having maybe 30 or 35 kids to having 135, and it just didn't work. So we are not designing something where the classroom teachers aren't delivering remote instruction. They still are. This is supplemental to classroom instruction. It's recognizing that there's a level of difficulty with communication and follow through in a remote environment, and so we have additional supports in order to try and close that communication gap and follow through with what those students need in a timely manner is really kind of a philosophy we're trying to move forward with.
It would be cool with this position, like you said, like, we don't want to go back to the way it was. And so through this, could a position like this also help create what that future could look like?
Well, that's
through
just
processes, through like, because they're doing it so they can build.
That's just it.
Oh,
I mean, that's the thing I really hope with whatever it means to go back to or get beyond this, I really hope we still have a system that is really a three-pronged approach, that yes, we have classes in person and you can access a whole assortment of them, but we also have a combination of remote and in person, or we have fully remote courses. We absolutely need to be the full-service shop, and that requires us to build structures and build these levels of support so that people can be successful in all of those different modes.
So I think that's important, because I think to put it on faculty and staff who are just trying to get through the day is going to be difficult. Having somebody who can, help build that outside, I think is going to be critical if we do want to move forward.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's just trying to get through what you can get through.
Absolutely.
I would think for anybody that's in remote learning, that's maybe get lost in this, this is the individual that could get them out of it. Because as far as I'm concerned, I know there's a certain group of people are going to pick this up, but no problem at all. There's a certain group that we have to be very careful of that could get left behind. I personally probably would be one of those getting left behind, where you need just that little extra because you're not picking it up just like automatic. And we have kids still have lots of other things in their life besides that we have to work with. But at the same time, I just don't want anybody to get left behind. And from my perspective, that was probably most important. As I read the information about it, I couldn't get my mind off that, because I did want to be in a position where we discovered 6 months ago from now, we have a whole bunch of kids that missed the boat. We don't want to do that if we can avoid it in any way possible. That's where I said.
So the next step in these are all our ideas, and I think we have good rationale for all of these things that are on the list. Obviously, our rationale doesn't always align with the decision makers, and so the next step with this is, there are some of them that absolutely will be approved, but we have to just get them all submitted. And then people down at the State Department can work with us to figure out if it's something they would approve or not. So just because if the board moves forward with this motion to approve this doesn't mean that all of these are being implemented. It basically opens the gate to get them at the State Department's front door, and then it would all be pending State Department approval is where we would be at.
So do we have a motion to approve the funding plans presented for Matt to proceed?
I motion.
We have a motion from Thomas, a second.
I'll second.
Maggie has a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Carried. Then we're going to review upcoming meetings.
So Thursday of this week, we have CT advisory meeting, 6 p.m., Secondary School Innovation Center. Monday, October 5th, so the city township school joint meetings at 5. If you're going to attend that, I just need to know. I would like it just so that we don't have a quorum,
So where are we at? I think you mentioned this a while back.
So I think Maggie was planning on attending, but I don't know beyond Maggie if others were. Thomas?
Thomas? Okay, so then we're good right
Is there a
there.
third member that wants to? There can certainly be another one. I just don't want 4, is my only concern. The only thing is then the policy committee is also meeting that night. And I think it'll just be a matter of, we'll just have to get up and excuse ourselves at 5:55 so we can get over to start our policy committee at 6 p.m. Okay?
Does the policy meeting have to be then?
In order for us to get it to the work session and then get it
Gotcha.
to the board agenda,
Okay.
it really can't be any later than that.
Okay, I just thought, well,
October 13th is our work and learn, our work session for October. And then it sounds like I will just throw the Minnesota State High School League on that agenda, as we'll know more information after the 1st. And then October 27th is our regular business meeting, 6 p.m. as well.
I believe we have a joint powers meeting tomorrow, 2 o'clock also. That's going to be a
Tomorrow.
virtual meeting.
It is. Is it virtual or are they having it in a space?
I believe it's virtual.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a Zoom meeting.
anything else?
Anything else?
Okay, do we have somebody that wants to make a motion to adjourn?
I suppose. I will.
We have a motion from Jacob. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Cheryl. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Carried.